When people first arrive in Thailand, almost everyone has the same thought. I can't believe how cheap this is. It feels obvious, it feels immediate, and it feels true, at least at first. Rent is lower than expected, food feels inexpensive, transport seems effortless, services cost less than back home. You don't need spreadsheets to feel it. You feel it emotionally. That feeling is powerful because it arrives before responsibility does. And that timing matters more than most people realize. In the early months, Thailand feels like a financial revelation. Not because life is cheap, but because life is incomplete. You're not fully living yet. You're still arriving. You're comparing everything to your previous life instead of to your future one. And comparison is where the illusion begins. At the beginning, you don't need much. You don't expect much. You don't notice what's missing. Your standards temporarily lower, not consciously, but naturally. Noise is interesting instead of exhausting. Small inconveniences feel like culture. Uncertainty feels like freedom. You're lighter than usual, more flexible, more forgiving. And because of that, your spending is artificially low. Not because Thailand is cheap, but because you are a temporary tolerant. That tolerance doesn't last. It never does. But while it's there, everything feels affordable. Early rent feels reasonable because you don't know what long-term comfort costs yet. Street food feels perfect because routine hasn't set in. Healthcare doesn't register because nothing has happened yet. Life hasn't arrived yet. Most people don't understand that the first phase of living here isn't real life. It's a transition state. You're running on novelty and momentum, and novelty is cheap. Reality isn't. As weeks turn into months, something subtle changes. You stop noticing what's exciting and start noticing what's irritating. Not in a dramatic way, just quietly. The fan is louder than you thought. The neighbors are closer than you expected. The road noise doesn't disappear at night. The condo that felt good enough starts to feel thin. At first, you ignore it. Then you adapt around it. Then eventually you start paying to fix it. That's the first quiet cost increase. Not a bill, a decision. You move to a better unit, a quieter area, a higher floor, a building with better management. None of this feels indulgent, it feels necessary. And that's how expenses rise here. Not through luxury, but through correction. People don't upgrade because they want more. They upgrade because they want less friction. Less noise, less stress, less compromise. That pattern repeats everywhere. Food changes. At first, eating out every day feels cheap and fun. Then your body asks for balance. Then your energy changes. Then routines matter. You start cooking more, buying better ingredients, seeking consistency. Still reasonable, still calm, but no longer cheap. Transport follows the same path. At first, you walk, grab rides, stay local. Then distance matters, weather matters, time matters. Eventually, control matters. So you rent something. Then you consider owning. Then you factor in maintenance, insurance, reliability. Not extravagance, stability. And stability always costs more than improvisation. Healthcare is the biggest illusion of all because it's invisible until it isn't. When people say Thailand is cheap, they're often talking about a period where nothing has gone wrong yet. No diagnosis, no long-term medication, no follow-ups, no monitoring. But life doesn't pause just because you move countries. Bodies age, conditions appear, energy shifts. And when healthcare becomes part of your routine instead of an emergency, costs settle into a new normal. Still manageable, still often better than elsewhere, but no longer theoretical. The cheap phase depends on absence. Absence of friction, absence of responsibility, absence of long-term thinking. Once life fills in those gaps, the numbers change. Not because Thailand changed, but because you did. Visas are another example. At first, paperwork feels like a formality. Then it becomes reoccurring. Then it becomes something you plan around. Fees, travel, agents, timing, and renewals. Not expensive individually, persistent collectively. And persistence is where people feel cost creep. Not from one big bill, but from many small, unavoidable ones. The mistake people make is assuming that the early phase is the baseline. It isn't. It's a honeymoon. And honeymoons are always cheaper than marriages. Over time, Thailand stops feeling like a deal and starts feeling like a place. And places cost money to live in properly. What catches people off guard isn't that expenses rise. It's that they rise quietly. There's no moment where everything suddenly feels expensive. There's just a gradual realization that your lifestyle is more complete now, more stable, more adult. That's not a failure, that's progress. But if you're planning your life around the first phase, the second phase feels like a betrayal. People are saying now that Thailand has got expensive. What they really mean is, my expectations didn't grow up when my life did. That mismatch creates stress. Not because money is tight, but because the story they told themselves stopped matching reality. Those who struggle most aren't the ones without money. They're the ones without recalibration. They keep chasing the early feelings instead of designing the later ones. And the later one requires different thinking. Longer timelines, more buffers, more margin. The people who thrive here long term aren't the ones who found the cheapest way to live. They're the ones who found the most repeatable way. A life that works on an ordinary Tuesday. A routine that holds up when energies dip. A setup that doesn't unravel when something unexpected happens. That kind of life costs more than the honeymoon, but it costs less than chaos. Thailand doesn't become expensive, it becomes honest. It removes the noise quickly. It shows you the real cost of comfort, health, peace, and autonomy, without the layers of debt and obligation many people carry elsewhere. That clarity can feel unsettling if you weren't ready for it, but it can also feel relieving, because once the illusion fades, the anxiety often fades with it. You stop asking whether it's cheap, you start asking whether it works. And that's a much calmer question. If you've stayed with this to the end, you'll already understand something many people never articulate. You're not looking for a bargain. You're looking for a life that holds together. Thailand doesn't promise escape. It offers a mirror. And when you stop expecting it to be cheap and start expecting it to be real, everything makes more sense. The costs stop feeling sneaky. They start feeling intentional. And that's where stability begins. Not in the honeymoon, not in the fantasy, but in the quiet decision to build something that repeats well. That decision doesn't need urgency. It doesn't need excitement. It just needs honesty. Can you just do me a massive favor? If you've enjoyed today's video, can you press the subscribe button for me? It really helps the channel out. And just drop a comment down below if you're enjoying these videos at the moment and you're thinking about retiring over in Thailand soon. Thanks for watching today, and we'll see you on the next one.